How to learn to motivate yourself to study. I want to tell you a story about two people I know. One guy, his name is Murphy, and this other dude, his name is Greg. And these two particular people are medical students. They're in the same class, they're in the same cohort, and as it turns out, they have an exam this Friday. So they have to study, and they both set out to study at least 4 to 6 hours every single day, Monday until Friday for their exam. They're gonna do their active recall, their spaced repetition, their Anki, all that good stuff. But as the week progresses, something very interesting happens. See, Murphy is getting more motivated as the week goes on. He's waking up earlier, he's studying harder, he's getting better scores on his practice exams, and he's also taking good care of himself. He's cleaning his spaces, he's eating clean, he's going to the gym, he's making time for hobbies, he goes out with his friends, and he's in bed by 9 p.m. every single day. Like, Murphy's doing really well. He's killing it, and he feels better as time goes on. But Greg is getting less motivated as the week goes on. He's already 10 subjects behind. And it's Tuesday. He procrastinates until 10 p.m. and studies all night, so the next day he has absolutely no energy to cook, to clean, to work out, not to mention to study, which is the most important thing right now. So he just lays on the couch all day eating ramen noodles and DoorDash until, again, 10 p.m. rolls around, and he finally musters up some energy to go hit a study session, an all-nighter again. Jesus Christ, that must suck. Does he have time to go out with his friends or do some hobbies? Of course not, because he's busy. He can't even get up to wash his hands. You think he's going to go to the gym? But what happened? Why do these two guys have such different weeks? What's going on? Is one just more gifted than the other? You might be thinking, oh, it's because Greg is a type B personality and he's a procrastinator just like me. He probably didn't use the Pomodoro technique or the spaced repetition algorithm or this study technique. And that's what 90% of people think. They're just not using the right technique to do the studying. But right now, it doesn't matter what technique they're using. They could be highlighting and rereading for like 10 hours straight. It doesn't matter, because the problem is not the techniques. The problem is the person does not identify, Greg doesn't identify with a high-performing student. And so he doesn't act like one. And as the week goes on, he gets more demotivated because he's falling behind, because he feels like it's really hard to keep track of his studies, and it's really taking a toll on him. It wouldn't matter if he had this fucking AI transcriber tool or the UWorld blocks all unlocked. It wouldn't matter, because it doesn't matter what tools he has. He just doesn't find enough motivation to get through the day, stop procrastinating, and get some studying done. And Murphy thought he was a good student, so he was motivated enough to get his studying done early, because that's what a good student does. He then went to the gym and took care of himself, because that's also what a good student does. He believes he is a good student. That's it. And that's enough to motivate you to do some really good work. Now, 99% of medical students live unmotivated. They procrastinate just like Greg. And it's not really their fault. Nobody thinks they're good enough yet, which demotivates them, which makes them procrastinate, which makes them fall into this vicious cycle of, I'll do it later, and then they don't do it later and they fall behind, and then that just reaffirms that they're not good enough, and then they procrastinate even more, and the cycle just goes on and on and on, to the tune of about 4 to 6 years of medical school. Even when people graduate and they go on to do their residency, they fall into the same trap because they don't feel like they're enough. Like, do you see why it's so easy to fall into the spiral of anxiety and depression and hopelessness, especially as medical students, because the topics just pile on top of each other. And if you let yourself get behind, you're going to pay dearly for it. Now, I know what it's like. I used to feel incompetent every single day of my first semester of medical school. And when I really had to perform, when I really had to muster up some energy for an exam I had or a presentation, it felt like I was getting thrown into a pool with a cement ball chained to my leg, and I couldn't get up for air. It was one of the darkest periods of my life. But then I survived the first semester. It wasn't really that bad in the end, even though I didn't believe I could do it. And for summer vacation, I read Courage is Calling by Ryan Holiday. It's a really good book. I really couldn't recommend it enough. And one of the key ideas of this book is that it is far easier to put yourself on the line for something that's really important, for something that's really hard to do, like, for example, study medicine, when you identify as a person that is good at that. So imagine this: when we identify as an athlete, it becomes 10 times more easier to go to the gym or to play a sport, because we are an athlete. That is what an athlete does. When we identify as a good student because we either think highly of ourselves or some other people praise us, then it is far easier to maintain that reputation and think, oh, well, a good student gets up at 7 a.m. to do some studying, and then they feel really confident, so I'm going to feel very confident, and then I'm going to do well on my exams. It's easier. But the opposite is also true. If you identify as a mediocre student or a bad student, or you just simply haven't been getting enough praise for you to feel confident in your work, you're going to start to fall behind. And it's easy to fall behind because you don't feel like a good student. You don't feel like somebody who would get up early to hit the books or hit some Anki flashcards or get good grades. You confirm in a way your worst fears, which is falling behind and being a bad student. And so when you have an exam or a presentation that you absolutely have to perform on, it takes a lot of mental energy and it drains you. And that's when you start to burn out because you need to do a lot of work just to get through the brick wall of, I'm not good enough, this is going to be so bad, I'm going to get a really low grade. So we can identify as a good student or a bad student. So why not identify as the student that helps us more in the long run and makes us feel motivated? Why not choose to feel like the good student? All right, so this is going to sound really insensitive, but why don't you just choose to be this high achieving version of yourself? Why don't you just choose to believe that you are a really great student who gets some really good work done, puts in the hours, is really good at clinical reasoning and stuff like that? Why don't you just choose to be good at what you are studying? Well, let me clear that up. Why don't you just choose to feel good about yourself and what you are studying? Look, let me clear something up. You don't need some sort of external validation or constant praise for you to feel good about yourself. You don't need somebody to tell you that you are a good student to feel like a good student. That could help, and that is a really big advantage to people who have it. But you can also generate that feeling for yourself. You can choose to feel this. And again, it's unfortunate that you haven't felt the praise that you deserve, but there is something that you can do about it that gets you to the level where you want to be, and I'm going to teach it to you right now. So I'm going to teach you how to build this identity for yourself, this identity of a good student, of a productive student that gets motivated to do really good work done, not just for the sake of productivity or studying 12 hours a day, but for the sake of achieving the goals that you want to achieve and live the life that you want to live in the end. Because I can guarantee you that scrolling all day on the couch, waiting until 10 p.m., waiting until you absolutely cannot procrastinate any longer to study for this exam is not the way you want to live your life right now. And you want to feel good about yourself. Why not choose to do that right now? So I'm going to teach you this. Just keep in mind something. This isn't some reset your life in 24-hour challenge video. This is more of a guide that if you do this consistently when you need it every single day, it's going to change how you feel about yourself, all right? All right, this is what you're gonna do. Get a sheet of paper or a journal and write about some goals you have. So maybe you have the goal of getting a good grade, or maybe you want to have a certain GPA. Maybe you want to study for only certain hours of the day so that you have more free time to do things that are really important to you. Maybe you want to start going to the gym. Maybe you want to start eating cleaner. Maybe you want to go out with more friends more often, see family more often. Just write all these goals down in this little journal or this little piece of paper you have, all right? And then for each of those goals, write something that you have done in order to get closer to that goal. It doesn't have to be really big. It doesn't have to be, I got 100 on this really big test. It could be something really small. It could be, I opened a medical book today. I watched a Ninja Nerd video at 2x speed for 5 minutes. I went to class. I researched something on ChatGPT that I didn't know about. I did one Anki. It doesn't matter. It could be really, really, really small. But for each one of those goals, write something that you have done to get closer to that goal. Again, it could be a really, really, really tiny step, but just write something. Now, this is gonna get kind of weird and introspective and kind of hippie-like, but just stay with me here, all right? You ready? We're going to do some sort of a visualization that's going to help you rewire the way you think about yourself. So read everything that you wrote down in your journal, every single thing that you've done to get closer to your goals. Close your eyes, and these things, these individual steps, imagine somebody else that vaguely looks like you. Imagine somebody else doing these things. So imagine somebody else opening a book, or imagine somebody else studying for like 10 minutes, taking some notes, going to class, wearing their lab coat and doing some experiments in the lab, in the anatomy lab. Imagine somebody doing these things exactly how you did them. Now, whatever this other person is doing, imagine your point of view, and you're walking towards that person right in the middle, almost as if you're interrupting, almost as if you're rudely interrupting this person in the middle of whatever they're doing, in the middle of trying to study or trying to get through some Anki questions. You're walking up to this person, and as you're getting closer to this person, they start to resemble you more. They start to resemble your individual characteristics, your facial features, your hair, your height, your clothes. they start to look more and more and more like you. So open your eyes quickly, scan yourself right now, see the clothes that you have on, quickly look at your hair, your face, and then close your eyes again and see exactly what you just saw a few seconds ago and put that image into this other person who is doing the tasks, who is doing like the studying and stuff. Now, as soon as you see yourself, as soon as you see this person as a mirror image of yourself, walk up to them, rudely interrupt whatever they are doing and tell them, hey, I'm really proud of you for doing this. You are an amazing student and an amazing person for putting in the work. You are responsible, you are productive, you are disciplined. I am so proud of you. You are on a really, really, really good track. You're going to graduate. You're going to be an amazing doctor. I am so proud of you. And keep saying more positive things and imagine this person smiling and being happy and feeling proud of themselves. Imagine this like warm, fuzzy feeling, this energizing feeling going through them. Kind of see through them and see what they are feeling as you say these words, as you say these words of encouragement. All right, now you can open your eyes. You just implanted about 10% of a productive student identity into yourself. You implanted a tiny bit of this identity into yourself. So now you see yourself as a bit more of a better student or as a more productive person. This didn't cure yourself. This didn't cure your procrastination from one minute to the other. You have to make this into some sort of habit, and we're going to talk about that right now. So I did this 5-minute visualization every day for about a month right after first semester, and it really shaped me into becoming a really, really, really productive, well-rounded student. And it just made me happier to be in medical school and to put in some really good effort into studying, into reading, into writing, into presenting, into exams. It just made everything lighter on my shoulders. And it made me believe that I was the type of person who would crush these goals, who would crush the exams, who would crush my grades. I was really happy to keep performing because I was motivated to see myself as this student who really got this stuff done. And as I did more of the things, as I did more of the studying, of the flashcards, of the presentation, of the exams, and as I got higher and higher and higher, I got even more motivated because action precedes motivation. And these particular actions made me believe that I was being more of a good student. Not necessarily results-based, just more the action of sitting down and getting some reading done or looking at my lecture slides or doing a practice exam for a certain topic. Those actions made me motivated to do more of the actions later on because it made me feel like I was more and more and more of a good student. So this repetition of doing the same actions, the same good actions that a good student does, made me more motivated to fulfill my identity as a good, productive student. Now, the weird thing about this practice is that you don't really stop it when you feel finished. You don't really stop it when you feel fulfilled and in your new identity. More or less, you use it as like a tool in your tool belt when you feel the need to lift yourself up and boost your morale a little. When you really have like a tough week or a tough month, when you get called out in class, when you get a bad grade, when you just don't feel like yourself, when you don't feel productive, when you feel like you've hit a plateau, use this visualization, use it every single day for a few weeks to really boost yourself up, really boost your self-esteem, and then see how the motivation picks up to keep going even though the things are getting harder. It really works to pick up the pace and help you feel better about yourself. It doesn't matter if you're getting good grades or bad grades, you feel like a good student, which at the end of the day is all motivation really is, just feeling good about yourself to keep doing the work that eventually is going to get you where you want to be. And that's how you can practically find the motivation to do the hard work every single day, even if you don't really feel like it, because you are fulfilling the identity of yourself as the good, productive medical student. And I am so proud of you for watching the end of this video.